UW360 is proudly supported by BECU, a not-for-profit member-owned credit union. Pacific Office Automation, copy, print, workflow, and IT. Problem solved.
Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn Douglas. Welcome to UW360 and welcome to the new and improved Hub, the Husky Union Building. This is a center for student life here and it recently underwent a major facelift. We'll give you a tour a little later in the show. We'll also help lift your spirits by taking you to a craft distillery. We'll check out research on rare brain disorders and we'll visit a law clinic that helps people tackle their issues with the IRS. But in our first story, we show you a fascinating process where UW researchers are making three-dimensional chips with living human kidney cells. It's a new way to test new drugs without using people.
What we can do is really try and replicate what happens in the human kidney.
Something revolutionary is being developed here.
It's going to allow us to try to emulate human physiology.
These crudely drawn diagrams map out the structure of human kidney vessels and the design of a three-dimensional chip-like device in which they hope to grow living human kidney cells for use in drug testing.
Further movement of these molecules.
The project is one of 17 around the country funded by the National Institutes of Health.
Well, the current system for developing new therapies, in particular for kidney disease, are extremely limited. Part of that has to do with how complex an organ the kidney is. More than 20 million Americans, or more than 1 in 10 people, have decreased kidney function. And everyone with kidney disease is at risk for a variety of complications, including adverse reactions to various medications.
The project is building upon technology already under development on the University of Washington campus.
The most important component of that is a central chamber that contains a three-dimensional microenvironment. The chamber is filled with collagen, which is a tissue material, and then within this environment we grow our tissue and organ structures.
Newman's team at Nordis, a private company based in the UW's Fluke Hall, has already demonstrated that their chip-like device can work. Human blood vessel cells were injected into the device where they replicated and formed new blood vessels capable of having liquids passed through them. Doing the same thing with human kidney cells, however, is a much tougher challenge.
The kidney is one of the most complicated organs in the human body, so it's an enormous challenge for us to try to use this chip and replicate on a chip what a normal human kidney would do when exposed to different drugs or different medications.
In order to persuade these kidney cells to behave like in vivo, means like in the human body, we need to provide the right conditions.
Creating the right conditions starts with the design and building of the chips.
I originally draw my designs in a 3D CAD package, and then I machine these designs into a hard machinable wax. And then I cast off of these to create molds for the parts for the devices. The smallest feature I machine is about the size of a human hair. We have to choose materials that are autoclavable, we have to choose materials that are biocompatible, and then getting all of that to come together in a manufacturing process that is relatively quick and inexpensive is one of the big challenges.
The ability to one day mass produce the kidney chips, both affordably and to the highest quality, is critical to Nordis's future. Getting to that next level for Nordis is made easier by the support this small startup receives from the University of Washington's Center for Commercialization, or C4C.
The Center for Commercialization creates commercialization projects around software startups, medical diagnostics, advanced materials, medical devices, any number of research technologies that come out of the University of Washington.
It's early days, but the technology is proven and there is considerable optimism at Nordis.
Well, if the project is successful, then for the very first time we'll have a mechanism to rapidly test the effects of any new medication that's being developed on the human kidney.
So this technology potentially leads to chips of the brain, chips of the liver, chips of the intestine. For instance, you can have an intestine chip taking up the drug, then you reroute that to the next chip, which is a liver chip where the drug gets metabolized and changed, and then measure the downstream effect, let's say, on a brain chip.
For now, though, Doctors Newman and Himmelfarb are still at the drawing board stage, and a great deal of work remains ahead. But there's every reason to hope that the kidney on a chip will soon be a reality.
To learn more about this story, you'll find a link on our website, uwtv.org/UW360. Now stay with us. A UW alum helps us raise a glass to some choice spirits as UW360 continues. Welcome back, everyone. Now's your chance to see something not seen in Washington State in nearly a century. 2 years ago, UW alum Stephen Stone opened the first craft distillery in Seattle since Prohibition began.
If you ever find yourself in Seattle's Inner Bay neighborhood, wander into Sound Spirits to try some craft vodka, gin, or other liquors and get a taste of history in the making.
We're Seattle's first distillery since Prohibition.
In 1916, Washington became a dry state. That was 3 years before the 18th Amendment made Prohibition the law of the land. Of course, if you knew the right channels, there were ways to get a drink. And that kept law enforcement busy, rounding up illegal stills. Prohibition ended in 1933, and 3/4 of a century later, Seattle got its first craft distillery.
There was one other distillery that started up right after Prohibition, but they didn't last but a few years and they shut down.
In 2008, the state passed legislation to create a new craft distillery license, a move which simplified the application process for small-scale distillers like Stephen Stone. The license requires distilleries to use at least 51% raw materials from Washington state. And it also allows them to sell their product directly to their customers and provide free samples.
That's a big benefit because people love to try before they buy, especially with a product that they have never heard of before.
As a full-time aerospace engineer for Boeing, Stephen jokes that he does rocket science by day and rocket fuel by night.
Engineers love to solve problems, and Lord knows there's a lot of problems in starting a business.
Mechanical know-how has been invaluable to building the distillery. The inspiration to build a business came while studying for an MBA at the University of Washington's Foster School.
And decided that there's a lot about the world that would be explained by learning more about the business side of things, and would also help me be a better engineer for Boeing. I had no idea that there was some entrepreneurship genes in me.
Stephen noticed a trend across the country. Craft distilleries seem to be popping up all over the place, but none in Seattle.
I looked at how passionate people are about the Northwest local products. What other industries have done well here that are similar? Well, beer and wine have done really well in Washington. So it's almost just a given that spirits would too.
As it turns out, Stephen was right. In 2011, 35 craft distilleries were licensed in the state, up from just 8 in 2009. And business is picking up steam. The hours are long and the work is hard, but at the end of the day, it's all worth it.
There's an art meets science aspect of it that the creation and the making of it it's a wonderful thing to me. The way that people respond to the flavors that we work so hard to do well is really rewarding. Every time someone tells me that they love my product, just really makes my heart glow.
Well, as any business owner knows, starting your own business isn't for the faint of heart. Stephen puts in at least 35 hours a week at Sound Spirits after he wraps up his day job. Okay, now from spirits to something that tends to dampen spirits, taxes. What if your spouse told you they were paid when they actually weren't? You could end up owing a whole lot of money, even if it wasn't your fault. The Federal Tax Clinic at the UW School of Law helps people solve some of their serious disputes with the IRS.
You know, we had this whirlwind romance in the beginning, right? We had a Cinderella Prince Charming wedding.
I pronounce you husband and wife.
Stacy's marriage had a storybook beginning, but the promise to love and to cherish didn't last long.
A lot of just putting me down, making me feel like I was worthless, which I did. It gradually got worse and worse over the years. He had me under complete control, and I would do whatever he said because I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want my kids to get hurt.
After fleeing to a shelter and finally getting a divorce, this chapter of Stacy's life was supposed to be over. But years later, there was one thing she never could have seen coming. While married, Stacy's ex-husband failed to pay their federal taxes, and the IRS was coming to collect, which included pursuing both spouses.
It was like $25,000, which to me is a huge amount of money.
Tax Clinic, this is Eric speaking.
She called the Federal Tax Clinic at the University of Washington School of Law.
Students are able to actually practice law while still in law school. So it's sort of like residency for doctors or your internship, where these are real clients, they're real issues.
The clinic represents 500 to 600 clients a year in all types of tax cases.
In the first 6 months of this year, we saved taxpayers over $1.2 million.
Adria Vondra is a practicing tax lawyer who started at the UW School of Law Clinic. As a student, she took the original call from Stacy.
She told me her whole story just in the first call. She was very open and honest and really forthcoming in everything that had happened to her.
Like Stacy, 90% of clients seeking innocent spouse relief are women, often single mothers with fairly low incomes.
She associated the IRS with her ex-husband and all that she'd been through.
Working hand in hand with the Federal Tax Clinic, it was Stacy versus the IRS, a battle that would drag on for years.
For the most part, the IRS really tries to get the answer right, and they try to only hold those that are truly responsible.
Because of cases like Stacy's, the IRS decided to drop its 2-year statute of limitations in some innocent spouse cases.
And the IRS, by its own doing, has relaxed the rules and made it much easier for people, women, to get innocent spouse relief.
After years of court hearings and appeals, the IRS made a final ruling on Stacy's case.
So I texted her and I said, "This is Adria, call me right away." And so she called me about 2 minutes later, and I told her, and I also told her she was getting a refund of over $20,000, and she pretty much screamed in the air and was very, very excited.
I couldn't believe it that somebody like me actually won this huge, it was a huge ordeal for years and years.
Nearly every day at the UW School of Law Federal Tax Clinic, another Stacy is on the line.
When you can help someone who has a problem that's just insurmountable to them, where you have grown men afterwards cry, and I get emails saying, "You've allowed me to move forward with my life." I mean, that's why you do this.
What's for dinner?
It was supposed to be a storybook beginning. That was far from true. But at least for Stacy today, she's finally ready to begin the next chapter of her life.
Because it was such a long fight that I never thought would have this resolution, and it's just amazing. So, all those people who think that it can't be done, it can be done, and there is a happy ending sometimes, and not to give up.
Coming up next, how UW research in rare brain disorders could actually help all of us, as UW 360 continues. Welcome back, everyone. No one pays closer attention to important genetic discoveries than the people who may benefit from those studies, like those with rare brain disorders. But as UW scientists are showing us, that research could one day help all of us.
Can you say rhombencephalosynapsis, Spencer?
At 2, Spencer's a chatty little guy, but he can't say rhombencephalosynapsis. It's a disorder that makes his brain radically different from most people's.
Rhombencephalosynapsis is a rare brain malformation. When we were originally diagnosed, there was supposedly only 50 to 100 cases worldwide. You okay? They didn't know what would happen. Worst case scenario, Spencer would not sit up, walk, talk, roll over, feed himself, would never be able to go to the bathroom by himself, would be full care forever. Who's that?
Thomas.
Is that Dr. Doherty's stethoscope?
Dr. Dan Doherty, an associate professor of pediatrics at the University of Washington, diagnosed Spencer. Dr. Doherty studies rare disorders of the cerebellum and brainstem and hunts for the genes that cause them.
The focus of my research is on the human hindbrain and malformations of that part of the brain. The human hindbrain is responsible for coordination of movement, for coordination of speech and eye movements, and then also for basic functions like helping us remember to breathe without thinking about it, regulating heart rate, and also for coordinating facial muscles and facial sensation.
Watch your step.
In Spencer's brain, some parts are fused together, others are missing.
On the right is a normal cerebellum with the hemispheres and the midline vermis. And what you can also see is a big notch here in the back. And in Spencer's brain, on the left here, vermis is mostly missing. You can see a little bit of it here. And the hemispheres are fused across the midline, and so the folds of the hemispheres go right across the midline. You'll also notice that the big notch in the back is also missing.
Dr. Doherty says that right now there's no way to fix an abnormally formed brain. But once there's a diagnosis, patients can be monitored for medical complications. And there are ways to compensate, including physical therapy.
Can I put you down?
Yeah.
Okay.
It worked really well for Spencer. By 16 months, he was ready to cruise. His therapist brought him a walker.
As she was explaining to me that it might take him some time to get used to it, he walked across the kitchen with it. He has never slowed down since then, and it's been great. He also talks a lot now.
Besides treating patients like Spencer, Dan Doherty and his team search for genetic clues to a number of rare hindbrain disorders. People with Joubert syndrome, for example, may develop blindness, kidney failure, or liver problems.
Having a genetic cause can then allow us to perform carrier testing, so we can tell siblings whether they're at risk for having a child with Joubert syndrome, and we can also provide prenatal diagnosis and definitive diagnostic testing.
Historically, these rare disorders haven't received much attention because each of them affects so few people. But when combined, they affect up to 1 in 10 Americans. The research also benefits people who don't have disorders.
The other thing that's very important about rare disorders is that they tell us about human biology and how humans develop and how they function.
New technologies have revolutionized how physicians diagnose rare disorders and conduct research into the genetic causes.
The University of Washington Genome Sciences has developed methods to sequence the exome at a low cost and efficiently and very accurately, and this has been a real breakthrough for human disease research.
For patients and their families, technology offers connections around the world.
Dan put me in touch with a family right away that was local, which was fantastic. We all are on this rhombencephalosynapsis support group. There are people from Germany, Austria, Australia, because everyone's in such different stages. We help each other, see the similarities. He's gonna fix you.
Like I said, I'm not sure you need that much fixing.
While there are no cures in sight yet, understanding the origins of rare brain disorders is the first step in that direction.
My goal for Spencer is to follow in Dan's footsteps and to help other people find what's wrong. He's smart enough, he's crazy smart. And it's just as long as he never stops and looks back and just keeps going forward. Good job!
Stay with us. When we come back, we'll take you to a party to celebrate this new and improved hub as UW360 continues. Welcome back to UW360. Since 1949, there's been a student union building at this university. It's probably the one building that every person on campus uses at some point. So you can imagine the impact when in 2010, the hub shut down for 2 years for a major renovation. It finally reopened in September. along with a big party to celebrate its new look.
College is serious business, and these University of Washington students are very serious about celebrating Husky moments.
Tequila! 3, 2, 1!
It was a celebration of the newly remodeled Hub, the Husky Union Building, a center for student activities and services on campus.
Yeah, you good!
I'm in love with it. It's so gorgeous.
You can eat here, you can study here, you can buy books here. It's kind of like the living room of campus.
And I feel like I'll be able to meet a lot of people here, make new friends.
There's like a bowling alley downstairs, a lot of different levels of drinks, foods, and I think it's really cool that it's a great place for students to come and just relax and chill.
I think the bowling will be an awesome thing, and then sometimes even studying maybe.
As buildings go, the Hub wasn't that old. It first opened in 1949, but student needs had outgrown the original design.
It wasn't serving sort of this generation of students in terms of programming, in terms of flow, in terms of community building.
Students were invited and encouraged to help plan the renovation.
We came to the table saying, this is what we want out of a brand new union building. You can feel it, in every corner of the building. Every wall, every room, every small little touch is there to have student interests at heart.
Delicious. There's a lot of new features of the Hub that weren't here before that makes it a lot better for all students to use.
So they determined the goals, the priorities, the flow, the entry points, the atriums. The students were the ones that led us to this point.
On your marks, get set, eat!
The new Hub kept its traditional face, but inside there's much more space and light. It's more energy efficient, more accessible to everyone, and meets modern seismic codes. And it's gorgeous.
It feels so exciting because it kept in touch with that history, but at the same time, it's all new.
It's like the purple on the outside to the W's on the floor. It just screams purple and gold, and it's a really exciting place to be a Husky.
That's it for this edition of UW360. You can catch this episode again on our website, uwtv.org/UW360, where you'll also find links to more information on everything we've covered today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with all new stories from the University of Washington.
Wardrobe for Carolyn Douglas is provided by C'est La Vie, located in downtown Edmonds and in Renton at the Landing.